Welcome to our Women's Wednesday Entrepreneur Series. I'm Brandy Stitt with the Women's Business Center in Kansas City. Thank you all for joining us. Today, we will be focusing our session on Facebook 201, which is the second session of a four-part series focused on social media. We will be recording this session and posting it on our YouTube channel. We've been posting all of our weekly sessions on our YouTube channel. So if there are sessions you've missed or want to revisit, please feel free to visit us at Kansas City Women's Business Center on YouTube. And you'll be able to find all of our previous sessions there. Today, we are going to be joined by our two stellar presenters. They've been doing this for us a couple times and they do a great job. Aviva Ajmera with Solve KC and Christina Hager with Ovations Digital. So they are going to be sharing Facebook 201 with you. And then the next two Wednesdays, we'll have sessions on Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Not in that order, I put them out of order, sorry ladies, but they will give you some insight into what they'll be covering during those sessions as we proceed through the Facebook 201 session. So at this time, I'm gonna go ahead and hand it over. I think Christina, maybe you're going first.
Sure thing. Thank you, Brandy, and thank you to the Women's Business Center for having Aviva and I today. As Brandy said, I'm Christina Hager. I'm the president of Ovations Digital, and I am a social media strategist. So what that means is I help individuals, brands, organizations, and boards use social media strategically to reach their business goals. And I have clients both in the B2C and the B2B worlds, fashion, beauty, fitness, wellness, restaurants, e-commerce and brick and mortar stores, as well as tech, apps, sales, construction, consultants, and then individual thought leaders, attorneys, physicians, speakers, and authors, writers, people who really want to be seen as the voice of authority in their field. And so I am a small business owner myself, as is Aviva. And so we love helping other business owners learn how to optimize the results on social media and really get the best ROI for your efforts that you can.
Hi, everyone. I'm Aviva Ajmera, co-founder and CEO of Solve KC. I've been doing a version of this class for the last 4 years all over Kansas City for entrepreneurs, for small to medium-sized businesses, and for nonprofit organizations. But I am especially excited to teach this class today with Christina. Christina is my personal social media guru, and I feel as though you guys are about ready to receive this unbelievable treat of insights and expertise. So thank you for joining us today. I also wanted to reach out to everyone, and on behalf of Christina and I, just thank you for being a part of so many of our classes. We recognize a lot of names from last week's class and the series we taught a couple months ago, and the Women's Business Center has just been such a phenomenal sponsor to offer these classes free of charge. So thank you for that. Like Christina, our firm has B2B and B2C clients across many industries, and about 40% of our clients are actually nonprofit organizations. We do a lot of strategic planning and implementation work for our clients, and we work with a lot of board of directors to help them become high performing. Common to all of this work is social media and marketing. And I have an interesting perspective, having been a part of a large international B2C company for 15 years and 2 international B2B consulting firms for about 10 years collectively, and now in our 6th year of Solve KC, which is a B2B consulting firm. All of these companies use social media differently. So our hope for you today and throughout our series is that you will figure out what works best for you and your business. We are going to teach you tips and tricks and share a lot of real business examples. As Brandy mentioned, this is the second class in our 4-part series. Next week, we're going to focus on LinkedIn for your business. And then the following week, we are going to talk about both Instagram and Twitter. And you can sign up for those classes just like you signed up for this class on the Women's Business Center site. One more housekeeping mention. We are going to be going fast today. If you've joined us for any of our other classes, our goal is to share as much information as we can. And we want it to be really meaningful and interactive. So Christina and I both encourage you to type questions that you have either in the chat or the Q&A. I'll be monitoring both of those, and we've got 3 or 4 places throughout our time today where we'll take a pause and take a few questions. Just to get everybody started, we would love to know, are you a B2B company, a B2C company, and what is the name of your company? If you want to put that into the chat, we would love to check it out. And Christina and I will make you a personal promise. We will go in and we will find your business on Facebook, and we will start to follow your business. So you will automatically get some algorithm boost and some Facebook love from us. And you'll start to see that benefit you really as soon as possible. So let's go through the agenda for today. We are going to start with why social media is critical. We do have a few slides of charts and numbers. They're not always the most interesting, but I promise you it'll ground you in the foundation of why you need to take social media seriously as it goes to growing your business. We're also going to talk to you a little bit about some of the changes that have happened in social media during the time of COVID-19, because there's no question it has had an impact, and we want to make sure that you're aware of that. And then we're going to talk to you a little bit about speaking social, because sometimes we are both aware that some of the vernacular across the different platforms can be a little bit confusing. Today, we'll focus specifically on some of the Facebook vernacular, just to kind of demystify some of that for you. And then the bulk of our time, we are going to do a deep dive into Facebook. We are going to talk about algorithms, which is an ongoing mystery for so many of us. And the rules change on algorithms. So Christina is going to be sharing a lot of the most current insights, which are going to be really important for you to understand in order to optimize all of the time and the effort and your resources that you're putting into Facebook. We'll talk about a business page. And do you need one for your business, and the difference between a business page and a personal page. We'll talk about Facebook ads. We'll talk about groups. We'll talk about going live. And then we're going to talk about some tools, because I fully expect that by the time we get through all of that, you're going to be incredibly inspired, but maybe a little bit overwhelmed. And we don't want you to feel like that. So we're going to share some tools to make your life a little bit easier. And then, as I mentioned, we will take Q&A, the best of our ability throughout the entire workshop today. And then we're going to close with your next steps on how to start building out your Facebook plan. So we'll recap a little bit for do's and don'ts, tips for building your calendar, and then some worksheets to help build your plan. I'll also mention Brandy sent out in advance a handful of handouts for you. They are not every single slide in our deck by any means, but there's some that we thought would be some very helpful takeaways that you can make notes on and you can refer back to as you're building your Facebook plan. Okay, so let's talk about what comes to mind when you think about social media. Do you think it's something that, gosh, you know, it's the younger generation and we know social media is a thing, but they've kind of lost the art of how to actually talk to one another in person? I see my kids or my grandkids on their devices, even when they're sitting right next to each other. Is that what comes to mind? Or perhaps it's a little scary, and it's kind of like back when we were in middle school and high school and in chemistry class, and you might be afraid if you mix the wrong things, you're going to have an explosion and create a lot of problems. We promise you that won't happen. Or it could even be like a Rubik's Cube. For those of you who remember what a Rubik's Cube was, you know it's solvable. You know that there's a trick to it. You just have to put in the time and have the determination to figure it out. And I would say, yeah, it probably is kind of like that. So why is social media so important for your business? First and foremost, 74% of consumers rely on social media to make buying decisions. So if you are a business that sells a product or a service, or if you're a nonprofit organization, where fundraising is important, or perhaps you're about to have one of your big annual fundraisers, and this year they happen to be all virtual. It's important for you to understand that social media influences people. And if you want them to support your cause or your business, it is critical that you have some kind of consistent presence on social media so they know what you're all about. This slide here has got a lot of information on it. What we love is that it's current. We always love when we can get some 2020 information. And as you browse through this list, you'll see that the #1 reason consumers follow brands on social media is to learn about new products and services. And almost 50% do it to stay up to date on company news. I'll let you browse the rest of the list, but what you don't see on this list is people follow social media because they want to be sold to. And Christina and I will talk about that a lot. It's really important for you to understand, to get the most followership. We're not going to tell you you need to talk about your products all the time and try to sell them to people. That is not the best way to succeed in social media. There are a lot of ways, and we're going to talk about those.
One important aspect of social media is knowing where we are today, because all you have to do is turn on the news to see that there are different things happening with social media. There's TikTok exploding, talk of making TikTok illegal, new things happening with Facebook and Twitter, and we'll talk about some of those trends later. But for you as a business person, it's important to know how that might impact what you're putting on social media or what your followers are doing. So let's talk about the beginning of the year. This year, we saw that the population from last year to this year increased by 1%, but social media users increased by almost 8%. And then COVID happened, and we saw an increase in social media use by every single age group. People really started expanding their time that they were spending on social media. It made sense. A lot of people were at home. A lot of people could no longer see loved ones, family members, and friends. And so they really were connecting with people. In fact, 62% of Americans use social media to get their news, and over half of Americans use Facebook as one of the ways to get their news. And so people were using social media to connect, to get their news, and to find out a lot of information from brands. In fact, 43% of consumers say that it's reassuring to hear from brands during uncertain times. A lot of people wanted to know how brands were responding to COVID-19. At the very beginning, only about 15% of consumers said they didn't want to hear from brands. Most were really eager. And in fact, data tells us that about 34% of people think that if you as a business, either B2C or a B2B, any organization, if you are not posting on social media about your business right now in the pandemic, they think it's because you're not financially solvent and you're closing your doors. So it's important, even in times of stress or crisis, like some of us have been in, it's important to know that your consumers really want to engage with you on social media, and they're coming to you to see what kind of information they can find out. Furthermore, 75% of consumers say that during the pandemic, they have tried new shopping behaviors and new brands. So people right now are willing to engage with new businesses on social media and to try new businesses and give their dollars to those businesses. Now, I want to tell a little story of why social media can be critical for your business, and of a business that used Facebook as well as a digital presence for success. Maybe some of us have been ordering a little too much pizza since the pandemic started. That would be my family. But there's one pizza company that really knew how to use digital and Facebook to their benefit, and that's Domino's. So we look back in the history of pizza, and in the 1950s, Pizza Hut was everything, right? They were the first Pizza Hut to go to the White House, the first pizza to go into space. But then in the 1980s, Domino's really had the first franchise, and they came on the scene and made a major impact. They were really popular in, pop culture. They were featured in movies and commercials, and they were everywhere. But by the early 2000s, they had sunk. you could buy Domino's for $3 a share. And they had a really bad reputation that their pizza was awful and their leadership was bad. And they were close to going out to business until they had a great strategy to use digital. And what they did was they rebranded as an e-commerce business who sells pizza. First, they launched a campaign where they had the CEO and the head chef go on video and read some of the bad things that customers had written about them. Things like how bad their pizza tasted, like it was cardboard and cold and the sauce was awful. And then they actually changed the recipe. Just from that, they saw about 32% increase in sales. But they knew they needed to go further. They knew that Facebook was just coming on the scene. This was about 2003. And they said, what can we do? We're going to launch this "Oh, yes, we did" marketing campaign, where we're going to ask our followers on Facebook to tell us what they love and what they don't love about our pizza and what we can do to make it better. And so they had Facebook contests and promotions and really got a lot of engagement going with people who followed them online on Facebook. And from this, they actually took the ideas and put them through to executive review and approval and let people like you and I know about this, which made their consumers and customers feel very special, very heard, very loyal, all on Facebook. This was huge. They emphasized the digital ordering process, and they've always done that. In fact, you can now order a Domino's pizza from your Facebook Messenger using emojis. You can order it from Twitter using emojis. And so they really embraced social media at a pivotal time, and it was a great success for them. In fact, they went right back up to the top and they reached $12.3 billion in global sales. Now, that may seem amazing, but you're saying, Domino's, that's a huge brand with tons of marketing, tons of dollars in PR. And I'll tell you another super quick story of a small business having success, perhaps like yours might. A long time ago, many lives ago, I worked in a little store in Rockefeller Center in New York. It sold soaps, lotions, and creams, and nobody knew what it was. It was the first branch in the United States. Now, we had no traffic in our store, no real e-commerce to speak of. And I started using my personal Facebook and my social media to share about the business. And we started to see some of my friends and friends of friends come in the store. And so the store owner said, aha, we might want to give you the tools to drive our social media. And so with very little ad spend, I'm talking $20 here and there, I started running targeted Facebook ads, started posting more organically on Instagram and Twitter, but optimizing it for the audience. And with very little work to be done, but just making it strategic, in 3 months, we saw an increase in sales in 29.5%. And that is a very small business who is able to take their business and help grow it using social media. And if we could do it, so can you.
Thanks, Christina. Two super inspiring stories. And as you could tell, the scale is really different, which I think, again, goes to the power of Facebook. So this next slide has a lot of information on it. It is in your handouts. And we really wanted to pull together, I call this the money slide, because it's a slide that pulls in information probably from about 30 different resources, all at your fingertips on one page. So as we've chatted with you before, there are 4 primary platforms for social media for businesses. The first one is Facebook. It's the most popular social platform. The second one is LinkedIn, the world's largest professional network. So depending on if you are a B2B or a B2C, most likely you're already on at least one of these, if not both of these. The third platform, the second most popular social platform, is Instagram. And depending upon the nature of your business, if you're already on Facebook and that's the only social media platform you're on, if you are a B2C or a company that uses imagery and beautiful photography, you might be in the restaurant business or the fashion business or the food business, Instagram is a platform that you want to learn more about to see if it's a good fit for you. And then the fourth biggest social media platform for business is Twitter, and it is the second most recognized social platform. So I'm going to hit a few highlights on each of these platforms for you. For Facebook, it is the #1 social media site to influence purchase. So again, remember that very first numbers slide that we shared, 74% of consumers turn to social media to help with their buying decisions. Facebook is a platform that if you have a business, we would probably strongly encourage you to make sure you've got something about your business on Facebook. About 70% of US adults are on Facebook, with over 90 million Facebook business pages. Facebook Stories has 300 million active users daily. And Facebook users, and I will tell you, this number has gone up recently. It used to be 58 minutes of average time daily. It's now 75, and they check about 8 times a day. Okay. And Facebook is great for photos, videos, links, and events. So let's talk about LinkedIn a little bit. Without question, LinkedIn is business oriented. It focuses on news and articles, also conversation, and it is the ideal social media platform to connect with top industry influencers. So if you're a B2B business or a nonprofit that is not just local, yes, but also if you're involved with a nonprofit that's national, LinkedIn is definitely something that we would encourage you to be on. LinkedIn now has 700 million users with 40 million business pages. But more importantly, for you to understand from a demographic standpoint, almost 80% of users are over the age of 35, with 44% having high income at 75K or larger. 90 million senior level influencers and 64 million decision makers are on LinkedIn. So if any of this sounds good to you as it relates to your business, make sure you sign up for our class next week. Okay, the big thing with LinkedIn is they just added something called Stories. It's about 2.5 weeks old, and we'll talk more about it next week. LinkedIn is best for networking, building professional credibility, and B2B businesses, which thank you for everyone who's been putting comments into the chat. We've got a lot of B2B businesses, a lot of B2C, and a few nonprofits. So we've got a really nice mix for today's workshop. So thank you for that. Okay, Instagram. Instagram is a social sharing site. It is around building relationships, and about 90% of users are under the age of 35. While 72% of teens are on Instagram, the age group 55 plus is actually seeing the greatest growth. Surprisingly to me, but maybe not to those of you that are already on Instagram, 75% of US businesses use Instagram. So if you're not familiar with Instagram or your business isn't on Instagram yet, we would really encourage you to take our class in 2 weeks so you can figure out if maybe it's a good fit for you. On average, users spend 53 minutes a day on Instagram, so it's still quite a bit of time. It is only viewable on mobile devices. So unlike Facebook and LinkedIn, which you can also access on your desktop or your laptop, Instagram is just mobile devices. It's best for photos, videos, stories, and as I mentioned, image-friendly businesses. So let's talk about Twitter. Twitter limits your posts to 280 characters. It is great for conversation, customer questions, and news. Twitter now has 600 million users. It is where hashtags were created, and 67% of businesses are on Twitter. It is best for PR, news, real-time customer engagement, as well as photos, videos, and links. And I'll tell you, Twitter has evolved a lot over the last handful of years, and we'll go into some of the really fantastic features about Twitter for business in our class in 2 weeks. So if you want to learn more about that, again, sign up for that class.
Thanks, Aviva. So if you want to use social media efforts for your business or your organization, it's important that you can speak social, that you can have metrics to measure your success. And so we're going to give you a little glossary of terms. You might know most of these. Some of them might be new to you and how they're specific to Facebook today. So your feed, that's that rolling list of content on Facebook. When you open up the app in your phone or you open it up on desktop and you scroll up and down, all of that you see is called your feed. And the reach refers to the number of people who have viewed your ads or your posts at least once. It's sent into their feed, and that's the reach of your post. The impression is the number of times an ad or post is on someone's screen for the first time. And when it comes to engagement, this is the total number of actions people take involving your post. So it might mean liking a post, sharing a post, commenting on it. Engagement's really important because it's how you know how people are reacting to it. That's often a number that we really care about when it comes to social media. When it comes to ads or boosting posts, there are some analytics you can measure. So we have cost per click and cost per impressions. This is how you can understand the ROI of your ads and how successful they are. And why this is important is you can measure them against others in your industry, against the industry standards, to see how ads are performing. We understand the cost per click. You really understand that each time a customer or a potential customer clicks on this ad, it's 3 cents here, 5 cents here, $1.25 here. And you can decide how much those efforts are worth to you. And again, it really depends on what industry you're in. Traffic is an objective where you can drive people to your website or to your app. And then consideration, this is for Facebook ads. It's basically any objective that gets people to think about your business to seek more information. They're giving it their consideration. And when we get into the section today of talking about Facebook ads, we'll talk a little bit more about these numbers and maybe how you can even find the industry standards for whatever your particular business is, either B2B, B2C, or nonprofits. And then everyone wants to know about engagement. I said it was a really important number to know. Well, so the average engagement rate for a Facebook post is 3.6%. And the average organic reach for a Facebook post is 5.5%. And why this is important to know is a lot of times people will say, well, why is no one saying anything to my posts? Why is no one reacting to them? Well, if you have 100 followers, pretty much any post is only reaching about 5 or 6 of them. And having, comments from 3 of them is actually the best that you can kind of expect. So if you're getting more than that today, good job. You're doing something right. If you're getting about this today, nothing's wrong with you, but there are ways that you can definitely optimize this so you can creep into more engagement and see more engagement from your followers.
Okay, so let's dive into some fast facts about Facebook. So we mentioned on that money slide what Facebook was best for. I also wanted to just remind you kind of the demographics on Facebook. As you look across the chart on the bottom right-hand corner, you can see more than half of the population pretty much across every single demographic is on Facebook. So if you haven't had the aha moment yet, chances are your business needs to be on Facebook if it isn't already on Facebook. So one of the big questions is always, well, how many times do I need to post? So Christina shared with you with the speaking social slide, things like reach and engagement. Part of that is driven by how many times a week you post. So our recommendation and the social media experts' recommendation is a minimum of 3 times a week and a maximum of 10 times a week. Well, your next question would be, okay, well, what time of day should I be posting? The best times are said to be during the work week, specifically between 11 and 2, and more specifically on Wednesday and Thursday. Now, we're not trying to say Wednesday and Thursday is the only time that you should be posting. But in general, it is going to be kind of in that luncheon time frame. And then also on weekends between 1 and 4 p.m. The absolute worst times to post, and this probably won't come as much of a surprise, are 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. I have both of these asterisked because these are average numbers across all users, but depending upon your industry and who your specific target is, those numbers might shift a little bit. And honestly, the easiest way to figure out for your type of business the best times to post is just Google it. They've got it sliced by industry, so it's a great resource for you. Okay, so how do you boost your post? How do you make sure that your post is in more people's feed and gets the most amount of, so not only reach, but also engagement? First and foremost, you've got to have great content. We'll always encourage you to be really authentic. So know your audience and know what matters to them. Photos are way better than text only. Photos generate 120% more engagement, and video is now 11% of all Facebook posts with 8 billion views per day. So we do encourage you to experiment with video if you haven't already. Facebook Live has 4 times more likelihood of people watching it than pre-recorded videos, but also length matters. So posts shorter than 250 characters have 60% more engagement. We all have those friends that every time they post, it's a more ... And while we love those friends, maybe family members are like, oh, do I have time to actually read this post? So while sometimes they need to be that long because of whatever you might be communicating, our rule of thumb to you is don't have every single post be that long. Really try to shoot for having it within those 250 characters so they can see your entire post without having to click on the more ... Actions or questions have twice the level of engagement. And it makes sense, right? How many times do you see maybe on your personal feed, people saying, what are the best Mexican restaurants in town? Go. Or what is your favorite vacation spot anywhere in the world with your family? Go. Something like that. People chime in, right? Or I'm looking for a new book to read. What are your recommendations? Things like that. And then this last check mark, I'm going to tell you, every single time I teach a class with Christina, I learn something new, and I absolutely love that. So last week we were talking a little bit about hashtags, and I didn't realize that Facebook actually penalizes you if you have more than 3 hashtags. So that's really different than Instagram. And we'll talk about that more in the Instagram class, but each of these different platforms has a recommended number of hashtags to optimize your reach and your engagement. For Facebook, it's only 3. So I had actually been making this error with a lot of my posts, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't know this until now. So now you know it too. So we hope that you use this information really, really well.
Part of what Aviva is talking about is that Facebook has an algorithm in which it assigns every single piece of content sort of a ranking. And so how do you compete with the Facebook algorithm? What does that look like to you? And things like hashtags, things like using a picture, all of those things Aviva mentioned in the slide previous, those are ways that you can help rank up, so to speak, or move up your content through the algorithm. But let me tell you a little bit about the Facebook algorithm so you can understand it on maybe a deeper level than you have before. Because here's the thing, most people, most business owners, in fact, a lot of people who work in social media, they don't actually understand the Facebook algorithm. It's confusing, it's ever changing, it's a lot to learn. So Facebook takes about 200 different data points and it values content in different ways. And here's how. First, it takes an inventory of everything that's out there. everything that your friends, your family, businesses, kind of all posts available to you, the end user. Okay. And then it takes signals. Signals tell Facebook what each post is. What's the content? Is it a video? Is it a picture? Is it a whole bunch of text? Is it a question? This is really the thing that you as marketers or business owners or business leaders, this is the one thing you really have influence over, because you can change this for your content. Then we have predictions. So each of your followers on Facebook, your connections, your friends, it's predicted how likely they will respond to each post based on what they've done before. So let's say that Aviva has always commented on my posts and always gives me a little comment, a like, a share. Facebook would know that the prediction is she likes my content and she's going to comment on it. So it would rank up my content in her personal feed, maybe before someone else's who she doesn't really ever comment on. That's the same for businesses as well. And so then Facebook gives you this final score. You get your grade based on all these factors. Now, this isn't anything, unfortunately, that you can go look up, right? Because if you knew your content was getting a C minus, you would want to figure out how to get it to an A. But this is unfortunately something Facebook keeps pretty tight and close to their chest. So this is just things that we have to know. And as business owners and leaders, try to do our best to go through the Facebook algorithm. And here's the thing, most people don't understand how posts appear in their feed. More than half of adults actually don't understand. So if today this is the first time you're understanding it, you're not alone. Well, so what do we do? I mentioned those signals. That's kind of the one thing we have a little bit of control or influence over. So what do we do about them? Well, basically they're meaningful interactions. So story type, times posted, times viewed. So is it a Facebook Live? Is it a video? Is it a third-party link that takes you out of Facebook? Facebook doesn't like that as much as you putting content into Facebook. Meaning, if you have a video, Facebook doesn't love that you're going to YouTube to watch the video. They want you to just upload that video into their platform. Why? Because then more people will stay on Facebook longer. They're going to stay longer. They're getting that 75 minutes a day or whatever it is. That's what Facebook likes. And then you've got these active signals, all of those engagement metrics, comments, likes, shares. So basically, Facebook is all about popularity, because the more that someone comments, replies, likes, shares your posts, the more that Facebook says, aha, this is good content. I need to show this to more people. And so, as Aviva said in this slide, a couple slides ago, asking a question or getting a conversation going is always going to help you get more engagement than just stating a fact. Why? Because at its root, social media is social. It's for two-way engagement. It's not print advertising on a billboard. That's the difference. And so basically we can look at these ranking signals in three categories: the demographic, the media type, and then that popularity. And so when you're building your content, you can think about all of these factors and know, well, videos are always going to do better than a static image. A static image is always going to do better than just text, words. Short text is always going to do better than long text. And so that might help you shape your content and the things that you're putting on Facebook every single day. Now, here are the things that will hurt your Facebook engagement, therefore hurting how people are going to see your content in the algorithm. Something called engagement baiting. This is when you want a strong reaction or you want someone to vote, but you're not really giving them any value. Something like vote for your favorite, or like if this is cool to you, that kind of thing. After a while, Facebook says, well, you're not really giving anything of value. You're just trying to get likes or trying to get comments. You're not engaging in that two-way conversation. And then they say, no, no, no. And they don't show it to as many people. Misinformation or false information. If you're doing that, Facebook doesn't care for that and they're going to penalize it for you. Or if you're constantly sending people to your website, again, Facebook wants you to stay in the platform. Now, should you send your audience to your website? Of course. But should you do it every single post? Definitely not. That is something that will kill your engagement like that. And posting the same thing over and over again. We're having a sale, 2 for 1, that kind of thing. Facebook just thinks that that's not going to be popular. That's not going to get conversation going. And so they say, no, thanks. And in the similar vein, ad fatigue, posting the same ads time and time and time and time and time again, they aren't going to do anything for you. In fact, Facebook is going to start showing them to less and less people because there's something called fatigue. And once you get into Facebook ads, there's actually something called like a fatigue score that Facebook gives you. And you want to stay below it to make sure your ads are being seen by the best and the most people. We'll talk about that in the ads section. But basically what this whole thing tells us is, and this will be a through line Aviva and I have shared with you again and again through this class and others, social media is designed to be social. Of course you have a business. Of course you have products and services, but at the end of the day, it's about communication, connection, and storytelling. And that's what's going to help your Facebook engagement the most. Oh, Aviva, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. We
No
are going
problem.
to move into our first little break on Q&A, and I do have a question waiting in the queue, but first we wanted to answer a question that we get asked quite a bit. So what are some tips to break through the algorithm and see great engagement, Christina?
So we talked a little bit about this in the last couple of slides, but really that conversation, having a two-way conversation with your consumers, followers, potential customers, them entertainment, education, inspiration, that is huge. I know we're all trying to target different demographics, but especially millennials and Gen Z, they want a different kind of content. They want to buy from businesses and organizations, or they want to give money to businesses and organizations that make them feel something just as much as how good their product is. And we're actually seeing also since the pandemic, the trend of people really, really responding to educational and inspirational and escapist content is through the roof. So if you can do that for your followers, they're really going to, you'll see a difference in the algorithm and your followers will see a difference. Also, don't forget about posting consistently. Facebook really rewards both personal and business pages that post consistently. This doesn't mean the same exact time every single day, but this doesn't mean post once and take 3 weeks off. Facebook hates it. And also your audience doesn't like it because then they don't know when to expect conversation from you. Ask and use what's called user-generated content, or UGC. This means if you're a business, organization, nonprofit, that you're asking your friends, followers to take a picture at your virtual gala, or take a picture wearing your really cool novelty sock and post it onto your channels. They love it because it makes them feel very special, and it's great for social proof because it's not just you telling the world how awesome you are. It's a real person, one of your followers, telling the world how awesome you, your brand, or organization is. And that's really huge. Use the best practices. Aviva gave you amazing tips and tricks in the fast facts slide. So use those for Facebook. Boost successful posts, use Facebook ads. We'll talk a little bit about that, but all of those things will really help you break through the algorithm. And remember, you're going to see way more engagement, 6.15% for video post than just a regular status update, 1.38%. So optimize your posts, lots of video, lots of pictures.
Okay, so we've got a question in our Q&A. Are there things to think about differently as a service business trying to maximize social media versus marketing an actual tangible good?
So you would think so, but at the end of the day, no. Because at the end of the day, it's about communicating with your customer about their pain points and giving them some value. And so I think what's really important is if you sell tennis shoes, or if you sell printer ink, or if you sell consulting services, you have a customer or consumer who has a problem, and your service or good or tangible, user consumer good, it solves that problem. And at the end of the day, they want content that is of value to them. And so I think the biggest tip for you would be, instead of thinking about how am I going to market my service, and that's so much harder than just putting up a picture of tennis shoes and people like that, think about how, not marketing your product on Facebook, so to speak, not selling your service, but think about what that demographic wants and needs and start offering them that kind of content. That is super successful, especially when it comes to those services and B2B. So again, what that means is you're not always selling your services. You're talking about what your end consumer needs, and you're offering them things of value, maybe in a blog, maybe in a graphic, maybe in something that makes them smile. And as long as you know who your consumer is, then you have no problem addressing their needs.
Yeah, and I'll add to that because I know sometimes it can be a little confusing. I think another great way to get a sense of what is interesting to the end user is start following some other businesses that provide a service and see what they do and ask yourself, what do I like about this? What's annoying about it? Or what do I really appreciate that they're sharing this information on social? There's a lot of services. We've got a few people in our class today that really do an excellent job on social media. I'll just kind of throw out Sage Restoration is one of them. And they do a great job of, to Christina's point, of addressing a need. So if you have a flood in your basement, here's how we can help. And they go at it with a variety of different angles, using video, using basic facts, using examples of successful cleanups. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. Even financial services provide really interesting social media posts. But again, just follow some and it'll give you some ideas that are relevant for your own business. Okay, so two other quick questions. One is just clarifying, organic posts are ones that we create without information from another post, such as we're not reposting another post. Is that correct?
Oh, I see. That's an excellent interpretation. Actually, the way that would just be called original post. What organic post means is that they're posted onto Facebook and they aren't amplified with ad dollars. So you have organic posts, which are just posts on your Facebook, and then you have boosted posts or sponsored posts, which means you've put some money behind them. Really good question and clarification.
Okay, and I'm going to save the other question for a little bit later on. I just sent the respondent clarifying question to the question to make sure that we're answering it properly. Okay, so we promised you we would talk specifically about Facebook business pages. So why would you need a Facebook business page? Well, the main reason is to gain insights on your customers. You can also get customer emails and you can enhance your personal customer service because of the way that you're able to communicate with them and the way that they can contact you. Some other reasons, we talked a little bit about ads, which we'll talk about more, but you can run targeted ads for better ROI on your spend. It's a great way to build brand loyalty versus blending it in with your personal page. It's also a great way to drive website traffic. So if getting your customers or your consumers to your website is really important for your business, Facebook business page can help you do that. And another great reason is it's a good way to keep an eye on your competition. So a couple of fun facts. 78% of consumers say they've actually discovered products while they were on Facebook. And 39% of users will follow a Facebook page. I will have to admit, I've done this in order to receive a special offer. So if that's something that is applicable for your businesses, know that those incentives or those reasons for consumers to either follow or buy your products are out there. Okay. The other reason is your Facebook business page is your storefront. So people can search on your Facebook business page and it's public, unlike your personal page, which, as you know, you can make private. It's a great way for potential customers to vet your services and reviews. There's a place in there for customers to go in and put reviews on either you as a business owner or your business. It provides a great way to have customization and measurable advertising. It's a good place to showcase your hours, address, directions. A lot of the information around hours have changed due to COVID. So it's a good centralized place where you can keep it updated. Now we're starting to see businesses increase the number of hours, and sometimes it's not updated on Google, but you can control updating it on Facebook. It increases your SEO, or your search engine optimization, and it offers you a chance to connect and engage with your customers. So we wanted to share with you 3 local businesses and nonprofits that do a great job of having followership because of the kinds of content that they post on their business page. So one is Kansas City Joe's, another is the Kansas City Ballet, and the other is the Nelson Atkins Museum of Art. And you can see the range of contents to just keep it interesting and fun that these businesses post. So a little fun fact, kind of a parallel to what we just shared, but customers who like a business on Facebook are almost 80% more likely to make a new purchase from them. So again, just think about your own consumer behavior. If you are saying you actually like or you want to follow a business, most likely it's because you're interested in them. So you are more likely to make more purchases from them.
So we would urge you, as Aviva said, go check out these businesses. They're local to Kansas City. But she did mention that from your Facebook business page, you can actually watch businesses or competitors. They won't know you're watching. And it gives you some really good data as to what is going on their page, their top posts. And that may also get the wheels turning as to some good content that you can post on your page. Well, now we're going to talk about Facebook ads. This is always something that's really interesting to business owners and individuals because there's a lot that's going on with Facebook ads and it can be a little intimidating. I know I was intimidated when I first started, for sure, but Facebook is working harder and harder to make it easier for you. And so why would you need a Facebook ad? Why would you need to, what I call, amplify your posts by putting some money behind them? Well, you have this organic reach that's decent, but if you want more eyes on your content, or you want to increase people who know about you in the area you live in or in the sector that you work in, you need some more eyes on your content. And so it helps amplify your organic reach, meaning the non-paid reach that you already have. It lets you micro target your audience. You can choose an audience based on demographic, zip code, interests, hobbies, education level, so many different factors. And they're very cost effective. Facebook ads, are still one of the most cost effective ways to share your brand and to run ads in the digital space or elsewhere. You can also generate new leads, and it's so flexible because you can run 2 different ads. And if you see that one's working really well and the other is not, you just stop the other one, and you can do it on a dime. You can do it from your own home on a Tuesday night and say, I don't want that ad running anymore. It's not working well for me. And that ability to change the ads so frequently and adjust them when you have real-time data is excellent news for any business owner or marketer. And it's simple to build a Facebook ad. You choose an objective. You want to mirror this to some business objectives that you have. You set your budget and you select an audience. You decide where you're going to advertise. And what that means is Facebook will give you a lot of different options. Do you want it to appear in the center of the feed, on the side? We've probably all seen those ads if you're on Facebook. And then you manage and measure your data. And again, why? Because the post's average organic reach, this means when you don't put any money behind it, it's only really getting to 6%, 5 to 6% of your page's total likes. So we need a way for it to get to way, way more people than that. So here's how to build a Facebook ad that works for you, despite or in spite of whatever industry that you're in. The first thing you need to do is create a campaign with an objective and link it to your business goals. Not every ad is designed to have a sale at the end. And here's what I mean by that. Perhaps you're a new business, or you've had kind of a small following, or you've never really had great engagement on Facebook. Maybe you've never really tried. And so maybe the campaign objective is you just want to increase awareness of your brand or increase engagement. You don't necessarily expect people to make a sale right then and there, but you want them to know about you, to start considering you. You can have that as an objective. All of those things: brand awareness, reach, traffic, engagement, lead generation, of course, conversions and making a sale or driving traffic to your store. And then you name your marketing campaign so you can go back and check on it. And I always suggest A/B testing with different copy and assets. And what I mean by that is the words you're going to use beside the ad, and then the video or picture that you're going to use with the ad. What works great is start simple if you've never built a Facebook ad. One picture and 2 different sets of copy or text that goes with it. Try that. Then try 1 set of copy with 2 different pictures. Simple as that. See what's working. See what people are responding to. This is how it might look if you're building an ad. You can choose by location, you can see down, you can choose by age, by gender, and you can start to really specify who is seeing that ad. And so that's what we call targeting our demographic. Now you can build a saved audience, which you can always keep coming back to. That's that behaviors, location, ads. That's what you're seeing here, income level. You can create a custom audience. This is an awesome opportunity for you. You already have a list of perhaps people who have purchased something from you, or they've engaged with you. Maybe they've already visited the website and left their email in exchange for a 10% off coupon or something like that. Or if you're on the B2B side, maybe you've gotten a bunch of emails by people coming to a webinar or downloading a white paper. That's your custom audience. It's a very high value audience because they're people that are already a little bit of a warm lead. And then another thing I love to use is lookalike audiences. So if you have an email list or you have a set of emails, you can actually tell Facebook that you want a lookalike audience. And this isn't meaning that everyone's going to have brown hair and brown eyes like me, lookalike in that way. It means that they're going to have similar behaviors to your customer database. So you have to have a custom audience, you have to have emails, and then Facebook will pull other Facebook profiles that behave in the same way. And here's the idea. Let's say that you sell a really cool toddler toy. Well, you know that you are attracting a certain demographic, moms who are interested in that, right? Women of a certain age, maybe grandparents. The idea is if you're attracting women of a certain age with certain interests, family, might be health, fitness, dancing, whatever it is, then maybe Facebook will create a new audience that has those similar behaviors. And odds are they might be the same age that have children that same age. And so it becomes really beneficial for you to try to create a lookalike audience. Now, an average Facebook user clicks on 11 ads per month. So people are seeing ads regularly and they are clicking on them based on their behaviors, based on things they're interested in. So sometimes people get scared about Facebook ads and think that maybe their demographic will think less of them for creating a Facebook ads. No, people are expecting that Facebook ads are just part of the experience on Facebook. And oftentimes how Facebook serves people ads in that feed is a very natural experience. And sometimes they don't even know they're looking at an ad until later. It just is part of the Facebook experience. Now, we talked about that ad placement rather, which this just means, do you want to leave it on Facebook, or Facebook gives you the option, if you have a business Instagram account, Facebook actually owns Instagram. And so it will ask you, do you want to serve it to your Instagram audience as well? This can be a really easy way to do some great advertising on both platforms at the same time. It will also ask you, do you want to show it to people on their phones or just on their desktop? Always everywhere is the answer. And actually Facebook, and here's a little pro tip, it gives you an option of let Facebook optimize it for the best end experience. And I'm telling you, even people that work in these big New York marketing agencies, they're pushing that button. Let Facebook optimize for me and choose the best places. So you should choose that too. And then you get to pick your budget and schedule, how long you want this ad to run and how much money roughly you want to spend. You build your ad, make sure you can, do a little preview of it. And so here's a little format of what it looks like. You can choose 2 or more images, a single image or video, or sort of a collection of things. And then we've given you a little example of an ad that this was actually voted one of the top ads of the first quarter of 2020. Everything about this ad is working. It's amazing because it came out after the pandemic, which you'll see count on Lyft for essential travel. So smart. It's popping with the colors they're using. It has a nice image, not too much text. And they care about their end user. If you must travel, please take care of yourself. We're here for you. We're friendly. We're affordable. I mean, it's kind of checking off all the boxes of the content to make a great ad. So here's how to make your ads the best. So this is huge. You have to install the Facebook Pixel on your website, because when you have the Facebook Pixel, it will give you so much information when you start driving traffic to your website of what people did on that website, how many people came over, and then you can compare that with whatever you have on your website, something like Google Analytics. It makes you understanding, are you getting a return on this investment? So much easier. And then you want to test everything. Like we said, you want to test 2 different pictures, maybe 2 different videos, maybe a picture versus a video. It's very popular and very smart if you have any user-generated content to go ahead and turn that into an ad. There have been huge, successful, major mega brands like Toyota that have taken user-generated content and they've turned it into entire marketing campaigns. So don't be scared to use things that someone else has already given you or that you've used before that really performs. And then if you're seeing ads that they're just not performing well, they're not getting a lot of clicks, they're not getting a lot of likes, they're just not doing well, get rid of them. That's the best thing about Facebook ads. You aren't marrying a Facebook ad, you're just dating. So if after the second date it's not working out, hasta la vista. Who has the time, right? All right, make some assumptions about your audience. You know what that mom of a toddler probably needs. Sleep. Sleep is what she needs. But be adaptive. If you're starting to see that certain messages you maybe didn't think would hit home are doing really well with your audience, well then go with those. Like everything in the pandemic, make a pivot and be flexible. Build ads using those lookalike audiences, target your email, but beware of that ad fatigue. This is something I just referenced earlier. In the back end of Facebook, which is what I call the Facebook business side, where you can see your analytics, it'll give you a little ad fatigue number, and Facebook will do a good job explaining when maybe too many people in your audience have seen that ad. That's when you know you need to change it or take it out of the rotation. Here are some of our favorite B2B and B2C ads. They're brightly colored. They don't use a ton of text. They're really personalized. So we have, Monday.com, Project Management, Bombas, which is a really cool stock company. And they're really just popping. And so as Aviva suggested, if you're not sure what ads and what you want your ads to look like, take a look. Your phone is full of them right now. I guarantee it. And so look on each of the channels that you're on and see what's really landing. And that's how you'll create some great ads for yourself, both on the analytics back end as you're building them and on the front end that your customers see.
So much great information, and I'm really excited because we've got several questions sitting in our Q&A. So we're going to first answer a question, honestly, that just kind of summarizes what we've talked about, but also it just keeps continuing to come up. So how do you know if you need a personal and a business page? I'm going to go ahead and answer this one because the next 4 questions are all going to be for Christina. So a personal page really is for your personal use. So you don't get access to target audience data like we talked about earlier. You cannot geo-target. You can't boost or use ads, and you have no ability to make it look like a storefront. So if any of those things are important, you cannot have just a personal page. On the other hand, we would say you don't need a Facebook business page if your audience isn't on Facebook. So if the people that you're selling to aren't on Facebook, you don't need a business page. Or if you're only going to use it to sell, then we don't recommend you bother with a business page. And then the other thing, just very pragmatically, let's say you're already on Instagram as an example for your business, which I have noticed there are quite a few newer restaurants in Kansas City that have really strong Instagram presence, or perhaps artists or people in the food space or the catering space, and it's working for you, and you just don't have time for multiple social media platforms. Then I would say if you've already got something that's working well for you and you need to prioritize your time, maybe Facebook for Business is something you just put on your list to tackle at a time when you've got some more capacity as you're starting up a new business or as you're currently focused on a different social media platform. Okay, I'm going to go into the 4 questions that we have, Christina. The first one is about selling. And the question is, what is the ratio, or I would say simply, what is the recommended percentage of posts that should just be selling versus everything else that you post?
Thank you for the easy question that I know the answer to. 10%. So think if you have 10 posts, only one of them should be hardcore selling or, drive it saying, buy this now.
Okay, great. And the next question is around A/B testing. So the question is, should we run both versions and use that data as learning? Or is there a system tool that grades the different copy versions?
Run both at the same time to the same audience. So everything has to be the same except obviously that one thing that you're testing. So let's say you have a saved audience. Take that saved audience and everything else about the ad has to be the same except, let's say you're running a picture versus a video. And let it run for a little bit of time to get enough data to really understand and make that assumption off of. Depending on how big your audience is, you might need more or less time. So I can't say magically after 24 hours, you have enough data. Usually a week is definitely enough time for you to see which is outdoing the other. And you might come up at like a 50-50 split. That's okay. Decide which one you want to use and then test something else about it. You might also see a clear winner and then you'll know. Usually it takes at least, I'd say 2 to 3 days, but by a week you should have enough information.
Okay, so here's another question related to Facebook ads, but not specific to A/B testing. So the question is, when we're starting out with Facebook ads, how do we determine if an ad is doing well or not? So in other words, what are we comparing it to?
All right, that is a great question. So firstly, you have whatever your goal is, which is, let's say it's for engagement. You want to see some great engagement. Well, from coming to this class today that the kind of baseline engagement is like 3% or something like that. You can actually look at cost per clicks or cost per impressions based on whatever your industry is. You can Google it. Facebook releases all of that information and you can see how your ads are doing in comparison. And, just look and monetarily make that decision based on, finances as well as what you are measuring for. So if you had set a goal, let's say I wanted to get 50 leads, I wanted 50 people to drop their email in Facebook for me, and you only get 10, you didn't make your goal. However, you need to look at the cost of that lead. And if the cost of a lead generation for your industry, let's say it's tech, it's going to be something like $5, $6, $7, $8, $9, $10. That's okay, because that's relevant for the industry you're in. If the industry standard is $5 and the cost for you to get one lead is $20, you know that there needs to be something that you need to change about that ad to lower the cost.
Okay, that's great. We do have one more question in the queue, but I just looked at the time. We've got about 20 minutes left. So we want to make sure we get to as much content as possible. And if we have time, I promise we will go back and answer this last question that's in the queue. So Christina's going to talk about Facebook groups and Facebook Live next.
All right, so another great way to sort of break through the algorithm or get your content seen is Facebook groups. So basically, groups are little gated communities within Facebook that are gated in different ways. They can be public. Everyone can see who's in the group. Anyone can join a group. There are a lot of these groups specific to Kansas City, specific to areas of interest. And then there are private groups. You can see that a group exists, but you need to request to join the group. I have I have a child in Blue Valley School District. So there's a Blue Valley group that I had to request to join, and then I was allowed into them. And then there are secret groups. These groups are not searchable. They don't come up on anything, and you have to be invited to be in these. I am also in a secret group. Let you guess which one it is. All right, so the great thing about groups is they allow for really personalized discussion and news and updates. They offer support or information about your businesses. And so I think a great example is if you're a real estate agent or if you're in financial services. And I know financial services is tough because there's certain things that you just can't post because of rules and regulations. But there are so many resources that you can share in these groups. It's not all about selling. People may have questions. If you're a real estate agent about, is this a good time to buy a house? What has COVID done to the market? I mean, there are so many discussions. What's going on East Kansas City? What's going on in KCK? What does out South look like right now? Really awesome ways that you can personalize content for your consumers. You can also create a really VIP situation for your customers and scenarios by providing sneak peeks, loyalty drivers like those specials and coupons Aviva was saying that she liked. I like them too. Or privileged access. Maybe you're the first to know something, or you get to chat with the creative designer of a certain something. Or maybe you are an artist and maybe your audience is online. And you have a little group for people who like your art, and you can make it sort of like, behind the scenes with the artist. People love feeling special. People love feeling connected. So think about how you might create a group or be a part of a group. We see this a lot, by the way, in the health and fitness world. Lots of groups dedicated to health, fitness, and wellness. And here are great things that all groups have in common. They have some community rules. They have active participation. And it's really great if you have a little questionnaire at the beginning to ask people why they want to be in this group, because then they'll have to prove they're an actual real person and not a troll or a bot or just trying to create some trouble. And then lastly, a tool that creates amazing engagement on Facebook is Facebook's Go Live. And basically, this is a way that you can use Facebook as your own little media company, your own little YouTube channel. And it's all about video. Facebook Live videos get 6 times the interactions of regular videos, 10 times the comments. Facebook Lives are watched 3 times longer than regular videos. So by going live on Facebook, you're seeing a ton more engagement, which is great for you and great for your business. Now, if you're going to utilize Facebook Live, you should treat it like an event, like a virtual event. Announce the date and time you'll go live on your channels. You might distribute this information through an email list or perhaps on your channels. And then you should practice before you go live. Aviva and I certainly practiced before we joined this series, right? So practice that you have great video quality, great lighting, that you know what you're going to say, that you've maybe written a little script, but that you're not reading it and glued to it, that you can be engaging. And the key time for a Facebook Live, data tells us, is 15 minutes. If you don't have 15 minutes worth of information, or maybe your event is 30 minutes, hey, don't worry about it, but we wanted you to know what the key time was. And make sure you engage with your audience afterwards. So the great thing about a Facebook Live is once you're live, people can chat with you and give you comments right then and there. Now, if you have someone helping you manage it, they might be able to answer it right then and there for you. But if it's you, yourself, and I who's doing all of it, then later go back and make sure you answered all of their questions. And also create a call to action. What do you want them to do from the Facebook Live? Do you want them to book a free 15-minute consultation with you? Do you want them to schedule a meeting, a call? Do you want to give them a 10% off coupon? Like, what do you want them to do? Give them some direction as to what to do at the end of it. And then don't forget, when the live event is over, you want to post it on your feed. And if you use Facebook Live regularly, your followers can start to expect it. And it's always really helpful. If you live in the Kansas City area, Dr. Michelle Robin of Your Wellness Connection and Small Changes, Big Shifts, she does an excellent job at Facebook Live. She's not afraid to go live. She goes live when her audience is online, shares some good tips, and it's really done well for her business. Now, I don't know if you remember from a few years ago, Chewbacca Mom, this mom that was just living her best life in her car, putting on this Chewbacca mask of her kids and cracking herself up. She is the most viewed Facebook Live of all time, and which just tells us people want to be entertained. They want to be inspired. They love content. They love seeing people enjoy themselves. So my last tip, maybe that's not even on here, is have a good time. Have some fun with it. If you're a consultant and you have some tips to share, do it with a smile on your face. If you run a nonprofit and you're trying to get people to your virtual gala, give some enthusiasm around it and maybe offer them a little story about something that happened that week. People really love that and they really respond well to it.
Yeah, I'll concur what Christina is saying. Michelle Robin is a phenomenal example because she does use Facebook Live very regularly. And I'll tell you personally, Michelle is a really dear friend of mine, but when I watch her Facebook Live, I feel like I just got time with her. And any of you that know her in the Kansas City area, it's a treat. And you feel truly touched when you get a little bit of one-on-one time with Michelle Robin. So as you think about your customers or your clients, Facebook Live is just such a phenomenal way to be authentic. Most small businesses, their customers or clients associate the business owner with the business. So this is a great opportunity for you to really reach out to all your people and share with them whatever's on your mind or whatever you want them to know about regarding your business. So I am going to fly through this slide. It is in your handout, so I'm not going to read every single bullet because I want to try to make sure I get to some of the questions. So some tips on how to make your business page a big success. Make sure your cover image photo is updated. We haven't talked about that yet, but that's kind of like a no duh. So pick a great visual that really symbolizes what your business is. And fill out your profile. They only have it in business pages. They don't have it in your regular personal page. So talk about, your hours and where you're located and all the kinds of things that we've mentioned before. We're going to talk about content creation in a moment, so I'm not going to elaborate on that right now, but basically you've got to be prepared. And then engage with your followers. We've given you lots of great ideas on techniques and different ways to mix it up. If you're going to be posting 3 to 10 times a week, we don't want it to get boring. So there's a lot of different ways that you can engage with your customers or your clients. And we encourage you to try them all. I mean, you'll figure out what works and doesn't work based on the likes or the comments that you get. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about tools because if you are anything like me, as you're listening to all of this, I am a business owner and I am focused on running my business. So while I love the idea of being able to use social media to enhance my business presence in general, it's also a lot of work, right? I mean, Christina told you, you can't just post once every 3 weeks and think it's going to make a difference. You've got to be consistent. So the good news is there are tools out there to help you. And we thought it might be helpful to introduce these tools to you so that you get a sense of what's out there. So there are tools on just content creation. So let's just say you know yourself really well and you know that I'm not creating the actual visual, because you know a visual is paramount to just having text. You're not really good at that. Check out these three different services that can help you. And think of it like this. I know many of us use QuickBooks for our accounting and our bookkeeping for our business. These are social media tools to help you with your social media. There's also apps that can help you. Oops, okay, so you can do it yourself. Or you can use these tools to help you, but there's also apps that can help you with scheduling. So the first three help you with scheduling, and then the last two, Meet Edgar and Sprout Social, those are a little bit more sophisticated and cost a little bit more money. But the cool thing about those is they will actually help you curate content. So we talked a little bit about thought leadership, and we talked about different ways that you can mix up what you're posting. Those two services can help you curate content that's relevant to your business to just keep it really interesting. Okay, so Christina's going to talk to you about three of the kind of hot trends that are going on in Facebook, and then we're going to try to answer some of the questions that are sitting in the queue.
All right, so as I said at the beginning of the day, you just turn on the news and you're hearing about Facebook. There's a lot going on. So over the summer, we had a Facebook ad boycott. And what was going on is many businesses and individuals were upset because they felt like Facebook really wasn't addressing hate speech on the platform. And so a lot of really phenomenal groups got together and started this stop hate speech trend on Facebook. And what they did was they asked major brands and said, hey, for the month of July, pull your advertising from Facebook and let's show Facebook that we're serious, that we want them to do something. What they wanted was, 10 different things, but it basically boiled down to make sure that you're looking and controlling what's going on in Facebook. We want some different discourse on what that means. We want Facebook leadership to have different training, all of these different things. And so I think there ended up being something like 1,000 groups, organizations, businesses that pulled their Facebook advertising in July. This might have impacted you in July because you might have seen that there was more space or your dollars were going further. Well, now what's going on with that? We see that 4 out of every 5 businesses that pull their advertising have come back. They came back in September. We saw that a lot was done internally at Facebook. There was a congressional hearing. We saw that there were some different measures taken, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. And we saw that some major brands like Coca-Cola are continuing to pull their advertising dollars on Facebook until the end of the year. And this is important to you because you need to know who the major players in the space are and what they're doing. It's important from a social justice perspective for sure, but it's also important for an advertising and financial impact angle for you as well. Now let's talk about the election. So in May, Facebook's created something called the Independent Oversight Board. And that was an independent board that could basically overrule anything that Mark Zuckerberg or Facebook decided. And what was happening was Facebook will flag content it deems inappropriate. But as we saw from the Facebook ads boycott, they weren't really doing a great job on everything. They were flagging some things, not others. People felt it was inconsistent. And also people felt their content was being flagged when it shouldn't have. So this sort of board could oversee everything. It also blocked this is data from October 5th, I think, blocked 120,000 posts for misinformation about the election. 150 million posts were warned that whatever they were saying was borderline, and 2.2 million ads were rejected by Facebook. So Facebook is trying to do something. Now, I just read a quote from a call Mark Zuckerberg had last week saying after the election is over, they're going to pull back some of these restrictions. So it'll be interesting what kind of content is allowed to fly on Facebook. And lastly, and what might impact you the most, honestly, is since COVID, Facebook rolled out its Facebook Business Suite. And this is the complete integration of your business Instagram page and your business Facebook page in one spot on Facebook, where you can seamlessly post to both applications, where you can seamlessly see your messages from both Instagram and Facebook, and search all of your analytics and do everything from one place. And honestly, the reason that they rolled out this feature was to help small business owners in light of COVID. So we appreciate them doing that. I've already seen that now I'm getting my messages from my Ovations Digital Instagram page on my Facebook Messenger. So that's been something different that I've seen in the last week.
Okay, great. We've got a couple questions. So the first one is, well, they're always great questions, but I like this one because I know I've been on the receiving end of this, just because there are hecklers on Facebook sometimes. So the question is, how do you control comments, particularly the bad ones, either on your wall or your ads?
Okay, I've encountered this with a brand right now. So if they're a reasonable bad comment, if they had a bad experience, if their needs weren't met, you must address it out in the public, but suggest you move it to a private conversation. So address it where everyone can see it. We're so sorry you had that experience. That's a bummer, et cetera, et cetera. Let us email you privately or send us a message and let's get this taken care of, right? Great customer service. If they're a troll or clearly it's nutty, and I've had this experience for a tech company this year where people are just saying nonsense and they're clearly maybe made up accounts or something, you can actually remove those comments from your Facebook. Now, I would not remove comments that are just bad service comments, address those. But if they're just nuts or trolls or fake accounts, you can go ahead and remove that and then block those individuals if you see the same person doing it again and again, which is what happened to us.
Okay, that's great. And then my next question is around, how do you determine the amount of money to spend on ad spend? And then what about the number of days? So how do you start to figure out how many days you should run the ad for?
So the great thing about, I'll answer the second part of the question first. The great thing about Facebook ads is you can change on a dime. So if your ad is continuing to work well and it's continuing to drive your goals forward, you don't need to stop the ad. You can continue the ad until it's no longer serving you anymore, and you can continue to tweak and optimize it. There is no magic number on 2 weeks, 1 week, 3 months. I have had, for one organization, a different version of the same ad going since June. It's still serving us well. And here's how I know it's serving us well. My cost per click is either staying consistent or going down every week. My cost per impressions is going down every week. I'm seeing more people look at the ad every week. So for me, that's a measure of success. What's the first part of the question, Aviva? Sorry.
How do you determine what your budget is?
Oh, your budget. So that's a larger conversation in your organization. And basically it's, where is your target demographic? If you're trying to target millennials or Gen Z, please don't waste your time putting an ad on a billboard because they don't care. They love social media. So really think about where your target is and then you can decide. I will tell you, for A/B testing, you should probably save about 10% of your Facebook ad budgets for A/B testing.
That's great, Christina. Thank you. Okay, to the group, we have about 2 minutes left in our 90-minute session. The good news for everybody is every single slide I'm about to cover is in your handout packet. I'm going to hit a couple of highlights on this do's and don'ts because it's something that we really believe really strongly in. First and foremost, Christina has referred to it as goals or objectives, but really you need to have a social media strategy. You need to understand why and how you're using social media to grow your business. It's important that you also think about how every single post is impacting your brand. We've talked a little bit about balance, We also have talked to you about metrics. So think about what the right metrics are for you, your key performance indicators. Is it followers? Is it engagement? Is it clicks to your website? As you're formulating not only your strategy, but also the posts that you're going to use. And the last one is my personal favorite. Please be a good Facebook friend, okay? We encourage you, just like you want the people who you want to see your Facebook posts, whether it's personal or business, to like it or comment or share it. We recommend you do the very same. For all the businesses that I support and the nonprofits that I support, I try to be the best Facebook friend or follower possible, liking all of their posts, commenting when it's appropriate, and sharing when it's appropriate. You all that have been on this class today, Christina and I are going to try to go out there and like your businesses if they exist on Facebook. So please do that for one another, because that is good, I would say, good manners on Facebook. This is a really cool flow chart just to help you figure out what kinds of content to post. And again, it's in your handouts. And then again, just closing up on tips, we want you to be consistent. So figure out what those right days and times are. And if you need to use one of those tools, just give it a try. It's not a lifetime commitment. Have we said enough and often how important it is to plan? Plan. It will make it much easier for you. And then keep in mind, we know we're telling you to be most effective. You've got to be consistent. Have variety in what you're posting. There's always something to post. So here are some examples of that. And then finally, the last few slides are really just your worksheets for the rest of the year. So we've got about 2.5 months, a little less than that. Those are just some worksheets for you to make some notes on and begin planning. Our next class is next week. It's LinkedIn for Business. They're all our favorite classes, but LinkedIn is also really special because we talk about how in business, so if you're a B2B or a B2C business that has a lot of employees, we've got some really interesting insights for you on how to really optimize your reach. But we start with talking about your personal profile and how to get that as strong as possible. And then the following week, we've got 2 topics we're covering in one class. It's Instagram and Twitter for Business. And here's kind of a sneak peek at some of the comments. Again, sign up through Women's Business Center. Please follow Christina and I. You're welcome to send us friend requests personally, but especially for our businesses. Also on LinkedIn, we are there personally and professionally. And Instagram, I am not on Twitter, but Christina is. So here's all the information on that. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. Christina, any closing comments that you would like to make?
No, we're just excited to see what you have to share, support each other. We're a great community here. And as we have people from so many different states support other business owners, it's always the best thing to do. So thanks for joining us today.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Aviva. Thank you, Christina. This was a great session, and we hope to see you all next week for LinkedIn.